South Africa, right? It's got this huge thing with absent fathers, one of the highest rates globally. Something like 60% of kids under 10, they aren't living with their
Yeah.
dads.
It's double the rate we see in the U.S.
Wild, right? And you think, oh, it's got to be that whole migrant labor history, but it's way more complex than that, you know?
It is much more nuanced. We're diving into some research today about dads who are really like rewriting the rules, even when it's tough. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's fascinating because we're talking about South Africa, where it's almost unheard of for men to receive child support grants.
Right. Less than 2% get them.
Less than 2%.
Yeah.
So what's making these guys step up and be so involved when, honestly, it seems like the deck is stacked against them? It's got to be tough.
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, what's their motivation? That's what drove this research, actually. But we got to remember the whole societal pressure here. In South Africa, being a good dad is often, like, directly tied to being the breadwinner.
Oh, totally.
Right. And when you can't meet those expectations, because let's be real, low-paying jobs are tough.
They are.
It really impacts your confidence. A 2023 study, I think it was in the Journal of Family Studies,
Yeah.
it found that a lot of these dads felt inadequate. This constant, like, gnawing sense of not being good enough, even when they were trying, you know?
Oh, for sure. You're battling internal pressure, societal expectations. Sounds overwhelming.
Right. So where do you even begin to redefine things? Well, this is where it gets interesting. The research actually found that even with the financial struggles, these working dads, they were really committed to being there for their kids emotionally, spending quality time. It wasn't just about the money.
That's amazing. That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
But were they doing the, the hands-on stuff too, like childcare, housework, all that?
Oh, yeah. They were totally involved. Like, we're talking changing diapers, cooking, cleaning, the whole 9 yards. And what really stood out was how comfortable they were with it all.
Wow, that's a big deal. You know? Especially with that whole manly man thing that's often associated with South African masculinity.
Right. But, and here's the thing, a lot of them still saw it as the mother's job, primarily.
Really?
Yeah, like they'd help out, but only if asked, or if it was obvious their partner was totally swamped.
It's like they're trying to do both, right?
Yeah.
Challenging those old ideas with their actions, but still holding on to some of those traditional roles in their heads.
Exactly. And that tension, that internal struggle, that's what the researchers found super interesting, and they wanted to unpack it more. They started interviewing these dads to try to figure out, like, why is there this disconnect? So it turns out a lot of these guys, they had, like, firsthand experience, stuff that really challenged those traditional views. Like, some of them were raised by single moms.
Right.
Or they had to, like, step up for younger siblings. So caregiving, it wasn't some, abstract idea. They lived it.
They knew it firsthand.
Exactly. So it wasn't just about saying those norms are dumb. It was more like, this is my experience and this is how I'm going to parent.
Yeah, yeah. Shaping their parenting based on their own life.
Yeah.
Not just, like, rejecting something.
Right. And, speaking of challenging norms, what about the dads getting those child support grants?
Oh, right.
It's almost unheard of in South Africa for men to get that.
Less than 2%, right?
Exactly. It's like those grants totally flip the script on that whole you're only a good dad if you're the breadwinner thing.
Totally.
So without that money pressure, how did they define being a good father?
Right, right. Okay, so tell me, what did the research say about these guys?
So get this. Their focus wasn't on, like, material stuff. For them, being a good dad, it was about being there, present, physically, emotionally, providing love, guidance, being a good male role model.
Wow. See, that's huge because
Yeah.
it really does challenge this deeply ingrained idea we have that a dad's worth is all about the paycheck.
Absolutely. And what's even more interesting is that these dads, they were super hands-on, even when they lived with a partner. We're talking childcare, housework, all of it. It totally goes against those traditional gender roles.
So even though they were the ones getting the financial support, they weren't just like sitting back and letting the moms do everything.
Well, not at all. And here's where it gets really wild. The research found that a lot of these dads, they actually still kind of believed in some of those traditional gender roles.
Wait, really?
Yeah, even though their actions were like the opposite.
Oh, wow. So they were basically living in a way that contradicted what they themselves believed. That's got to cause some serious internal conflict.
You got it. It's like this tug of war, right? Between what they've always been told and how they're choosing to live.
Right. Okay, but like, how did that actually play out? Give me some examples of this internal conflict.
So Some of the dads talked about how, yeah, they felt this sense of pride, like they were contributing to their kids' lives in this really hands-on way, even though it meant going against what society expected. They loved being nurturing, being present.
Yeah.
But then there were also these moments of doubt, like those old beliefs would pop up. They'd start wondering, am I doing enough? Am I still a real man?
Man, that's got to be so hard.
Yeah.
To constantly be grappling with those thoughts, it makes you wonder, like, how do you push past that? So how did they deal with that, bridge that gap between what they were doing and what they kind of still believed, you know?
Well, it seems like those personal experiences we talked about, they played a big role. Like a lot of these dads, they'd seen their own mothers struggle as single parents, and that really stuck with them.
Yeah.
They didn't want that for their kids, and they didn't want to put that all on their partners either.
So it's like breaking those cycles, creating a new example for their own families.
Exactly. And for some of them, it went even deeper than that. They
Huh.
just had this more progressive view of gender roles, period. Believed that men and women should share everything equally.
Right, like they were consciously saying, those old definitions of masculinity, we're throwing those out.
Yeah, exactly. Embracing a totally different way of parenting.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always easy, let me tell you. A lot of these dads said they faced pushback
Oh, I bet.
from family, friends, even strangers.
Oh, yeah.
Getting those comments like, that's woman's work, or feeling judged for getting that child support grant, being a man.
Ugh, it's a shame they had to deal with that. But it just shows you how deep those societal norms run, right? Like, did the research look at how they coped with all that pressure?
Yeah, they did. Some of the dads found support groups really helpful.
Makes sense.
Connecting with other dads who were like going against the grain too. Others relied on their partners. Having that encouragement at home made a difference. But honestly, a lot of them, they said the biggest thing was seeing how their involvement impacted their kids. In a good way, obviously.
Yeah, that tracks. Like seeing those little smiles, having that bond, that's powerful.
Totally. And that's what makes this research so important. It shows us that change is possible, even when we're talking about these deeply ingrained societal norms. These dads are out there proving that fatherhood, it's about love, it's about care, it's about being present, and that's what matters. Not your bank account, not some outdated ideas about gender roles.
Like they're pioneers or something,
Yeah.
paving the way for something different for everyone.
Yeah.
But it can't stop with them, right? Like, what can we take away from all of this?
That's the question, isn't it? This research, it's a call to action for all of us. We can all do something to challenge those old stereotypes about fatherhood, support the dads who are stepping up, and honestly, just raise a generation that has a different idea of what family looks like, a more inclusive one.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If these dads in South Africa can challenge those deeply held beliefs, imagine what we could all do everywhere. That's something to think about.